In this episode of Saltwater Reasonings, I sit with choreographer and scholar Neila Ebankhs for a powerful conversation about movement, memory, ritual, grief, choreography, and the body as living archive. Together we think through movement as inquiry, resistance, ancestral technology, and a way of knowing. Neila reflects on movement as companion in language, what it means to inhabit a diasporic body, and on the tensions between formal dance training and embodied ancestral knowing. We speak about choreography as tracing energy, the politics of Caribbean movement vocabularies, the archive held in the pelvis, and the ways our bodies remember histories that scholarship alone cannot articulate. This conversation moves through ritual, grief, improv, colonial disembodiment, self-care, refusal, and the urgent work of remaining embodied in a world designed to fragment us. It is also a conversation about Caribbean futures, about what becomes possible when we trust the body as a site of intelligence, memory, and resistance. If you have ever felt your body trying to tell you something before language arrived, this episode is for you. I am so grateful for this opportunity to reason with you today. I'm a long-term admirer. I don't know if you know that, but
I might have heard.
long-time admirer. And I'm really glad you could take this time to speak with me today.
Thank you for having me in the salt water.
So let's jump right in. What is your earliest memory of movement as a language for you?
Ooh, as a language. It's interesting. Maybe more like movement as a friend, maybe more like movement as a compatriot, as a companion. Maybe I never recognized it as a language then, but from as early as I can remember, I had an affinity for moving. My mother tells me, she has this story where apparently I was reading the paper. I was probably like 3, I don't know. I'm pretending to read the paper like big people. And I had it upside down. And I said, baby, you have it upside down. And instead of turning the paper, I turned my body because it was on the ground. So I literally got up and turned my body. And my mother said, who would do that? Like, why wouldn't the child just turn the paper? So I think I've always tried to solve things kinetically. I remember as a child, I think this is after I got involved in dance class, and it was just like this, it was something that I guess when some people, for example, describe how they got into swimming and it was just like they were born in the water, I feel like I was born in a dance space, in a movement rich space, even though there's nobody in my bloodline who I know of that deals with dance, right? So I used to dance to the news. So when we had JBC TV in Jamaica, that's the precursor to TVJ, and the news would come on, I would dance to the sounds of the voices of the newscasters. I didn't care about what was going on in the news. I was too young, but it was the sound and the sonority and what that made my body want to do. And as an only child, you find these things to keep yourself, active. And so in a way, movement was that kind of companion for me. And then as I got older, I understood how much of a language it was. So at first it was play, it was belonging, it was expression and celebration. And then as I started to want to make things, or maybe even when I was on stage and I realized that I was communicating and people were responding, and it wasn't just about me, but it was about the thing that I was dancing about, then I started to think of it as a language as well, as a way to really express and to form ideas and to ask questions.
Yeah. I think a lot about movement as relationship, and you reference being an only child. What it is about being an only child and your propensity for movement.
I think as an only child, you have to delve into your imagination to feel less lonely, because it is a lonely life. You could fill it with a lot of different activities and cousins and so on. But there is also, well, for me anyway, there was still this sense of, wow, this is my journey. And when it's 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning and I'm having a nightmare and I don't want to wake up my parents, I have to self-soothe. I have to figure out strategies from very early. And I think movement became something that I was curious about, and my own movement as well. And because it felt so good to do it, and it literally did become a kind of companion. It became a way of me being able to have a relationship with myself. Granted, it also became mediated by things like a dance class and the formalities and what you're supposed to look like. But before that was the relationship between me and myself through movement, I think. And I think that was facilitated by me being an only child, because then I also had a lot of time and space within which to try to create things, or I heard a piece of music and I want to dance to it, and that was my thing. I didn't have to share it with anybody else. I was sharing it with my body, and I was sharing it with movement. If that moment was ours,
I feel so much of it is about interiority as well, because it's also that kind of exploration of what feels good, what feels right. And I'm hearing play, and then I'm hearing ritual. And then when you start to study, it becomes this thing that's formula as well. There's survival, there's inheritance, and then you go on to do all sorts of things with movement. This is the offer I want to make. When I think about the body as an archive, as this thing that is with you and collecting information, do you think about body that way? Do you think about movement that way? And can you speak about the body as archive?
Absolutely. It is, I would say, even the first recording system that you would ever experience. Everything is recorded there. Things that are coming from your bloodline are recorded in you. Things you didn't experience are still recorded in you, physically in your cells, in what your cells remember. And then the things that happen to you, the things that you do experience in this physical body, also get stored and recorded, sometimes suppressed, sometimes stored in a nice place. The things that you do regularly, experience regularly, can also change the shape and form of that body. So, which is what training does and what ritual does as well. It kind of makes a body a certain way inside and outside. And that is memory, and as dancers, for example, we depend highly on our kinetic memory, our body memory or muscle memory. But beyond the physical muscle memory, there is something else that is a deeper embodiment. There is a human memory, there is a spiritual memory, and there is ancestral memory, which for us in the Caribbean is even, I think, more poignant. That kind of ancestral memory that comes through even though you are not actively thinking about it. It finds its way back through your body and manifests as something else in your time. The body is living as an archive. It is unfortunately the kind of archive also that we hide things in. And sometimes we hide them from ourselves because we were expected to keep going on in this life, in this realm, no matter what happens to us. It is, I think it's been a great joy of mine. The joy is funny, but to have been a dancer, to be a dancer in this lifetime, because the gap between my mind and my body is virtually nothing. It's one system for me. As best as possible, I try to make that happen. And therefore, I've had to address some of those things that were hidden in order to be better at the craft, in order to have a body that is clearer. Instead of suppressing certain kinds of things, they have to come up, and I have to figure out how to handle them, whether through talk or through movement, through improvisation, through other kinds of things, maybe some versions of dance therapy, just so that the body can be clear enough for me to be able to communicate, clear and supple enough, so that there's no doubt for me that the body is an archive. I had a piece of work, I think I created it or it created me, but in 2012, called No Home Like This Body. And it had also to do with this idea of the body is what you have been living in and will continue to live in until you are elsewhere. And of course, also being home in that body. So being comfortable. The home is supposed to be a place where nobody can take you from. It's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a place where you don't have to wear pants. Like you're as comfortable as that. And the idea of the body as archive also is housed in that concept and that truth of your body as being your home. Your home is an archive. If you look around, you see where you've been, what you like, what you don't like. You see all of those things. I mean, I'm dealing with clutter at my house right now, so I see all of it, right? And then you think of your body as that sort of repository as well. What are some of the things that you have to clear in order to be able to? What are some things you have to face? What are some of the things that you treasure? All of those things are, and that's only the things that you can access. There's a lot of things that you can't access because that's DNA level archiving. Interestingly, I've been watching some sci-fi stuff, but the sci-fi is not too far from reality. The concept is that the next level of encoding, next level of saving information is DNA. Next level that probably cannot be hijacked, let's say, by AI, probably, we don't know, is actually encoding in cells. It's not beyond, because that's what the body is. That's what this magnificent ecosystem is.
I have so many vibrational branches right now. So let me figure out which branch I want to invite you to come on. But the first thing you said is that there is your mind and your body, the connection is there, and you try your best to not have those things be separate. So much of the colonial experience is about us being dismembered and disembodied. What are the rituals that you engage to make sure that there isn't this chasm between the mind and the body? Our systems are designed to make us disconnected from our body. And then we're dealing with technology which does it in a different way. The trauma of living human, being human is difficult. So is there intentionality about keeping minimum distance between your mind and your body?
Definitely. You rightly said it. The split is that kind of Cartesian split, that colonial import, that thing that has been injected into us so much so that we feel that's what it's supposed to be. Often I'm working with body mind as one word. I don't want a hyphen. We used to have body mind. Body mind centering is just a technique of getting yourself in tune. Your intelligence is one intelligence. Your body's intelligence and your mind's intelligence are dancing this dance all the time. And it's a matter of being able to tune in and switch between, because at the same time, there are things that your body would want, but your mind says no, because the mind hides, and the mind can lie and tweak and convince, and but the body itself knows what it knows. It needs what it needs. If it needs oxygen, if it needs to pee, it's very, very specific. And so I think it might be a matter of understanding the mind part enough to be able to see through the veils, because the mind wants to stay hidden and in control. And the body can be very insistent about, especially, for example, when you get ill, that's the body saying, look here, you need to deal with this right now. Right now, here are the things. You can't explain this away. You can't theorize it away. You can't emotion it away. Here is what I need. And there's no time for bargaining at that point, but we don't want to get there. We'd like to be able to have that sense. So the intentionality is, for me, every day is different, in the sense that my days are not always the same. Sometimes it comes through breath. Sometimes it really comes through a somatic awareness of what is happening. And of course, spirit is the third part. So
Yeah.
it's body, mind, spirit as one braid, if you want to call it that. And it's a matter of always making sure that the braid is even, because you don't want it to become a twist on one side and then one part is left out. So it's just constant awareness. Breath brings me back to awareness a lot of times. It's trying not to be too much in one or the other. It's trying not to ruminate too much. I'm an overthinker sometimes. And so if I find that happening, make it run its course and then jump into the body to bring it back. Because sometimes you can't think your way and feel your way out of something. Sometimes you have to move your way out of it. Sometimes you have to literally get up and shift your position. Try to stand upside down if you can. Shake. Do something to force your mind to stop ruminating. And it's that kind of awareness that may be the ritual, always kind of checking in to figure out. And some of it is dance training, but not all, because formal dance training, especially when you're dealing with particular techniques, they may benefit from you being somatically aware, but they don't always teach you how to be somatically aware. They don't teach you how to sense your cells. You're working on a form. You are trying to put on the form of someone else to be able to train your body to do things for expression purposes, for communication purposes, not necessarily for unifying purposes, not necessarily for unifying spirit and body and mind, even though being able to do that makes you the consummate artist. But the techniques themselves, the modern ones anyway, don't necessarily do that. Traditional forms have those kinds of meldings encoded in them. But I think when we take them into a studio space, because a studio is also a colonial construct, you take it into a studio space, distill it, you're focusing on the movement and the shapes and how the body uses time and space and levels and so on. And you're not necessarily getting yourself into the moment where you are trying to get all three things or more, because there are more dimensions to us, aligned. Because you're also not doing it for the purpose that it was actually made for. You're doing it to expand your own body's canon. So I say that to say what got me into the somatic way of working is actually yoga. Yoga gave me permission to not try to be forcing my body into a particular form and shape and way, and to actually listen and to breathe and to pay attention and to connect with how what is inside is reflected outside beyond feeling. It's not just feeling. It's not like I feel happy and so I'm going to dance happily. That's not it. It's beyond that. It's movement that literally starts from something I cannot see and emanates. Yoga, for example, can get me there.
Yeah.
Sometimes music, sometimes almost every time breathing will get me there. Deep breathing will get me there. Sometimes essential oils will get me there. Different kinds of things that
Yeah.
make me still enough to almost imagine all of the parts kind of coming together in order to face the day or face a moment or to
Mm.
rest.
Yeah. Whew.
Yeah.
So that idea about the studio being a colonial space, and then you reference the way that movement and all of the intelligences in ritual in some of our ancestral traditions. And so I'm feeling also the tension sometimes between the formal and the other formal, because I think they're
Yeah.
both
Thank
formal.
you.
So, but there's a tension between them. And as you're speaking,
Mhm.
I'm hearing the tension. I'm also hearing that there is, and, and I think this is probably true as we grow and we confront these things that we were taught to hold there. It's this constant shifting
Mhm.
that's happening.
Mhm.
And as you're
Mhm.
speaking too, I am also remembering that the limbic system, we have parts of our brain that doesn't think with words. It
Yes.
thinks with sensation, it thinks with sound, and it thinks with image. And I think when you're involved in the arts, we can turn off our frontal cortex for a little bit and remember that those powerful ways of processing the word is
Mhm.
encoded in our brainstem in sound, sensation, and image. And I feel in choreography, you're bringing those three things together in theater as
Yes.
well, right?
Yes.
It's
Mhm.
sound,
Mhm.
sensation, image,
Mhm.
movement, so that you're constantly moving through them. And I'm
Mhm.
hearing the intentionality about closing that gap.
Yes.
I don't know if you have this sense. Sometimes I feel it's so much work to
Mhm.
be present,
It's
to be attending.
it is like it's not a go to church on Sunday thing and it will carry for the week. It's not that kind of living. It is at almost every moment you have to pull yourself back because the way the world is, the way our lives are, and the way we have been trained to be frontal cortex preferential. During the course of the day, I can't tell you how many times I pull myself back into alignment in whatever way. Sometimes it's literally going out to the dog. Sometimes it is looking outside at the sunset, or going outside and literally touching grass because I know I need to be able to do it because the way the world has become now, it's so full of information that takes you out of alignment, that intentionally pulls you in all sorts of different directions emotionally. And once that happens, then your attention goes there. And before you know it, you feel so fragmented. You're not able to exist in the way that you want to exist. And so there has to be something intentional about how we are addressing that. And you rightly said in terms of choreography, movement, improvisation depends on our ability to bypass and go straight for the limbic, those kinds of needs that humans keep forgetting that we have. But you know who hasn't forgotten? Apple hasn't forgotten. Software
Mm.
technologists haven't forgotten. They have
Mhm.
just purchased some kind of software that allows them to do pre-speech recognition of your face. So they will
Yeah.
know even before you have formed the word, they know what you really would think. Therefore, they're able to kind of, I guess, craft things for what you need. So the things
Yeah.
that we're told aren't important are the things that those who want to have a little bit more control over what we do know are important. Micro expressions, anything that is pre-speech and pre-thought, precognitive, and they're invested in. We're not. We have lost our ability to read one another. What people call emotional intelligence or reading the room or whatever, to read energy, you know, to read the trees, to listen,
Yeah.
to hear the breeze.
Yeah. The way our ancestors did. So they could wake up in the morning, look outside, take a deep breath, and figure out what they need to realign to move through the day.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
get that. I get
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
When you were speaking a while ago, you referenced a piece that you did. And in referencing the piece, you said, I created a piece or the piece created me, whichever
Mhm.
one.
Mhm.
And it struck me because I wonder if there are aspects of yourself that
Mm.
only becomes visible through movement. Are there things about you that you could only know by moving? And how does that work with choreography? And if you can talk about that piece where you were referencing as well.
I think so. I think there's a way in which choreography brings forward some of the things I already know about myself. So I will give you humorous choreography because I'm goofy. That's one of the
Yeah.
things I like about myself. That is an
Yeah.
inherited trait. My dad was very goofy. But that aside, so there are ways in which what I already know about myself does come through. But my choreography tends to try to ask a question. So even in the fact that I framed that question, there are also aspects of me that come through because I'm audacious enough maybe to frame particular kinds of questions and want to know through choreography how other people feel about what it is I'm having this question about. I can't say that there's anything that I didn't know about myself that movement brought forward. I will say, though, that there are certain kinds of improvisational moments that occur that allow me to admit to myself that there are certain things going on. So there was a time, there have been many times when improv has kind of saved my emotional life. And it's not improv in front of anyone. This is improv in front of myself. Improv maybe with a camera so I could see and witness for myself. And this kind of comes through a practice called authentic movement that I was introduced to when I was in my master's in the UK. They gave us as a part of ways of creating performance, but it really is something taken from movement therapy, where you have a witness and you close your eyes and there's no music and you just move. And then the witness doesn't speak to you afterwards. The witness draws, and the conversation that you have about what they've witnessed is visual. So then there is more space and there's never judgment. And it was such a beautiful practice that I started to do it when I came back just for myself. And sometimes when I was at my lowest, I would just be in the studio and I would witness myself and do that with myself. And it's not that I discovered anything new, but it's that I opened a part of the archive, I allowed something to not get lodged somewhere because I was able to express what it was that I was feeling. And I mean, tears come, and sometimes because a movement is not about being pretty. It's not about form. It's about allowing the feeling to find its way through and see where it goes. If sound comes, sound comes. If it's a flick of a finger for the entire time I decide to do it, that's what it is, because it's whatever is truest at the moment. So I think maybe that might be the closest where I would come to discovering something, because some of these things you push them really, really far down in order to get through your day.
It kind of reminds me of that Khalil Gibran section on self-knowledge. And he says that your body knows all these things, but your ears long to hear your lips speak the words. That's
Yes.
the gist of it. So like there is self-knowledge, know all the things, but really giving yourself permission or access to it. And then you go, oh yeah, of course.
Right. And then it comes to the consciousness. But I mean, the truth is, maybe your hands do like to talk to one another without you getting in the middle of it to try to figure out what they're saying. Maybe, your shoulder is upset that it can never touch your other shoulder. You know what I mean? That's a whole other thing that could possibly be happening. Are you hosting your body? Is your body hosting you? I don't know. But the whole point is there are all sorts of other things that movement does allow you to be able to investigate. Yeah.
Yeah. And to get curious, it's almost as done. We started to talk about dance as research method and movement as method as well. But it's almost as though there's a way in which your body probably wants you to get curious about it.
I
It
think it
says,
does.
I have something to tell you.
I think it does.
Lean in.
I think it does. I think it does. I think we have, and I mean, unfortunately, it's become this kind of buzz topic now about, listening to your body and self-care and so on. But it's still couched in all these other kinds of ideas as opposed to really listening. It's not just about like, okay, you're having a sore throat, listen to your body and gargle. It's not necessary. That's a level of it, but that's not really it.
Yeah.
Like, listen to its joy as well. How does it feel literally when you take a shallow breath as against when you take a big breath? When's the last time you allowed your lungs to really, really just expand for the joy of it? When is the last time you ran your hand along your face? Not to put
Yeah.
on cream, but just like to be like, oh, this feel nice.
Yeah.
When COVID came, I was one of those who said, okay, well, let me see if I can make some stuff that's more film related. I have a phone and I have concepts, and there might be platforms. I mean, I'm not doing as much out in the world. We're still teaching, we're still doing whatever it is, but I want to make something still. And one of the concerns I had about the entire COVID experience was us being told that we could not trust ourselves enough to touch ourselves. So there were all of these admonitions: don't touch your face, don't touch anybody else, don't touch your faces, make sure your hands are washed all the time, don't touch your face. But then there's a comfort that we need in this particular moment, that somehow touching your own face can be the most comforting thing of all, you know? And so in the work, it's about 9 minutes I had on. It's a solo, filmed against a little wall. I had gloves on for quite a bit of it because they told us we're not able to. At first, we were able to, and then we're not able to anymore. Do the gloves make a difference? And then you're masked up. And then, you hunger for your own touch. And you forget how healing and important it is, not just for your mind, but literally for your hand to remember what your face feels like, or what you face to remember what your own hand feels like. It's a serious part of the health, I think, of our systems. So, yeah.
So I just had a thought. A lot of times we talk about the movement as liberating, but I know there are a lot of times people that I love have told me things I didn't want to hear. I wasn't ready to hear. I don't know if you've experienced it, like when movement has told you something. I'm like, yeah, really? Sometimes self-care becomes very shallow. Like, yeah,
Right.
treat yourself here, treat yourself there. But self-care is also sitting and hearing the hard things about self. And I don't think self-care has to always be that pleasant. It's not
Right.
always euphoric. Like sometimes self-care is a reckoning. I don't know what my question is here, but as you you were talking, I was thinking about like when you are avoiding what your body is calling you to do, like that is also information. Even the exploring the avoidance is a search, is something to find. I don't know if that showed up for you.
You are draping me right up by the collar of my very wonderful blouse, because I was gonna say to you, we're here speaking about embodiment and what the body is saying, and I have been ignoring mine for at least almost 3 years. My
Yeah.
dad died in 2023, in late 2023, and it was a shock to my system, because as a dancer, when you want to, let's say you want to do a turn, there are particular things that you do, and generally speaking, guaranteed your turn will come once you've gotten the skill. So you line things up, and then this other thing is supposed to follow, right? And I unfortunately sometimes think about the world like that, where the systems that are created, once you line things up and do what you're supposed to do, the things will follow. And I lined up everything, and still he passed under the care of the people who were supposed to keep him alive. And it shifted me in a particular kind of way, where I was even wondering if what I thought I knew about movement and systems and excellence and all of this I'm talking about right now with you, if it even made any sense. Like, what was the point? What was the point of being excellent in personal practice if you have to depend on systems that are not, and people who don't understand excellence in the same kind of way that you do? Because I have a barometer of excellence inside of me, because that's how I train. So if I can turn or I don't, there's no halfway turn. There's no, you turn or you don't. And you do it again and again and again and again. So your body knows the excellence. Usain runs, hurdlers hurdle. You either fall over the hurdle or you get over the hurdle. We have a physical understanding of excellence and commitment and devotion to it that in other systems and spaces, it doesn't align. And so I dropped out of listening to my body, also because it was too painful. A lot of the stuff that I hid inside is the anger and the grief at losing this giant of a person, this giant of a man, who was my goofy daddy, whose hands are now ash. And so I'm just now, like last year, I performed for a colleague of mine, O'Neill Price, and I'm glad he gave me this 20 minutes solo. So that was a kind of jolt back into body, because I had a purpose for a colleague, right? But then my life now has changed so much that I am not listening to what my body says it needs. It really needs me to stretch. It really needs me to get on that trampoline. It really needs me to do particular things. And particularly also because I'm at that age where it's not responding to what it used to. Things are shifting, those hormones are shifting, the joints are hurting more. And I know this intellectually, but I still am not listening to my body. And I sit and I think, what is that? What is the resistance? And I think it is, here it is. I think it is that I don't believe in it. My body believes in me, but I don't believe in it. And that's what I mean by the mind-body split. And I think what had happened with my dad helped to create that chasm. in terms of not believing that putting my body on the line makes a difference anyway. So why am I going to bother? Let me just sleep a little bit more. Let me eat that thing, because it's more comforting than actually facing and doing the actual self-care of facing myself. And I've tried so many times and started and stopped. And I have, because I also, as an only child, I cycle through systems, very personal systems, very quickly. Systems of organization, personal systems of getting things done, personal systems of exercising, and I cycle through them very fast. Sometimes I can't keep up with myself. So I'll be on a particular program for like a week, really good, and one thing drops and I need to create a whole new one because that don't work for me anymore. I don't want to eat that again. Like I can't bother. And compound that with now being a caregiver and what that means in terms of time and responsibility. I'm used to being able to focus and zone in on my body completely for like an hour, 2 hours, because that's my work. But no, I don't have that luxury anymore. And I don't like halfways with that. And so what does that mean for me believing in even trying to do it? So there's a lot to unpack. I don't know, something whispered to you. I am embodied in a I'm embodied in a general way, for sure. I'm embodied in a way that's even more specific than many people because I'm a dancer. But in terms of knowing, I know exactly what I need to do to be the clearest and the most supple and the most available body. And I'm not doing it because I still do have that kind of block. And it's going to take a while. Grief is forever,
Yeah.
you know? And the situation I'm in is kind of uncertain because the other bastion is she's not even a young chicken, but she's not that young. I'm trying to, and then there's that responsibility that kind of somehow I have to keep my body in two places. I have to be kind of ready just in case. And that level of readiness means I can't sit. I don't know how to sit and do that self-care, self-facing, and also be ready at the same time because you can go at any point in time. It's yeah, it's a thesis.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
It's a thesis.
It's a thesis. It really is. This is a dissertation.
I think learning to move honestly is a hard thing as well. I'm saying it to you, I dripping myself up. Do you know how long my body wants to dance to some drums? Like it knows it. I see a limiter coming at the end. I was like, why am I sitting down? Like my body knows that it needs that.
Yeah. But there are too many impediments. There are too many. I think for me, it's because I want it the way that I want it. I'm not a 5-minute exercise person. I'm not a let's take 15 minutes and do it. I need to immerse. I cannot eat a half a donut. I need the whole thing, and then I will be fine. The pizza for other people it works. It doesn't work for me, and I would rather be like, well, forget it. The other day I was trying to do micro exercise movements. That lasted one day. I was like, okay, I can't keep up. Between the housework and the this and the that, I can't do my calf raises. My apologies.
So I'm laughing with you because I've often said I don't do moderation. Like
that's right, not true. It's a start, right? And I say, okay, let's start small, let's start slow and go. Because as a dancer also, my training is going hard. Like that's what I'm used to. To get anything out of myself, it needs to go at a particular level. But man, I don't know. It's an interesting time. I will say that.
It's an interesting time.
But
it's an interesting time.
Framing it as the kind of self-care that is also self-accountability.
Yeah.
Because the truth is, it shames me and it hurts me to see like how my body has become comfortable in not being as strong, become comfortable in not being as flexible. And trying to think of the journey back there. Because when I was getting there to whatever was peak, I was younger. So it didn't feel as daunting. The recovery time was different. It's so daunting now. It's very, very daunting. And when you feel the pain from something that maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago didn't give you pain, I'm like, well, that's it. I'm just going to go and have some chips and watch Netflix because I can't do it. Okay, let me stretch while I'm watching Netflix. I can't bother. And then there goes my month,
Stop. So here's the thing that's blowing my mind too, because as we're talking, I'm thinking, if I get to that class with the drums and I'm moving, I'm gonna have to face other things about myself. Like I can't start, because then I'll have to ask myself harder questions. That would make me even more uncomfortable. I will hear those drums, my body will start to move, and then I'll have to answer a whole set of other questions that successfully been avoiding about where I am, what I'm doing, what I'm not doing.
Because your body lays it bare, Your body lays it bare, and it moving kind of clears something. The sweating clears something, so you can see it. The thing you've been avoiding just becomes really, really very blatant, that you have to deal with. And the mind knows that. And so the mind says, oh, well, I don't have enough time to do it. Or that's why sometimes it's good to sign up for something anyway. Like when your mind is not listening, just sign up for the thing. And then
Just do it.
you have to just work it out after somehow, yeah.
I love that. It reminds me of Adula Duis, who I had on earlier, and she talked about sweat being libation. And she
I
said it
saw
in a
that.
reasoning, and I was like,
Yes, it is
it is libation. And that stays with me. That stays with me. When I look at your work, and we're gonna definitely have all the links to your work, but you talk about, and you've said it today, that you make work from within. Yeah. What does work from within feel like in your body?
It feels, let me see. I guess it often comes from the part of my body that's more cerebral. It comes from a question, it comes from an interrogation, it comes from even before an interrogation, like a spark of curiosity. Even though sometimes it comes from visual things, it might come from seeing, because my work also has expanded now into using film. It might come from seeing a ladybug on a leaf, and filming that and then figuring out how to use that as pattern, as visual, as whatever else. It comes from within, but it also comes from within in terms of how I interpret other things, how I interpret a line of poetry, or how a phrase of music lands in me. And then then it starts to form the pearl inside. And then that's what starts to come out, But then there are also some things that do come from within, which is like personal experience uncovered, wondering how many other people might be feeling this or thinking this. Even when it's about a social justice kind of situation or a political moment, the question still comes from within, meaning I'm still opining about something. I'm still recognizing the shared humanity in a situation that I'm not experiencing, but for the grace of God go I. And so how else feels this about this particular thing? So it still has its journey from the inside to come out. Finding the movement to communicate, to explore with. Man, I have to thank Barbara Requa, one of the founders of the School of Dance. She was my movement analysis teacher, my choreography teacher as well, my composition teacher. And she really led us through being able to extrapolate, understanding the kinds of devices that you can use, the kinds of tools and tasks and exercises and prompts that you can give yourself. Because as choreographer, it's not just what you think that comes out. And it's not just that you're doing 100 different movements for 100 minutes of movement. Like that's not it. You are finding key things, key movements that connect with what we call motifs. And I mean, in visual arts, motifs are also a similar thing. The motifs come up again and again, but in dance, they come up differently. Like in music, they come up differently. You manipulate it a different way, but you are ensuring that your audience understands that this is what I'm talking about. And it comes back again in a different way. Something slight has changed about it. This is what I'm talking about. Don't ever forget I'm talking about this. And so you move from motif into phrase, you move from phrase into sequence, you move from sequence into your choreography, into however many movements you would like in terms of structure. So people think it's just like, you're moving from within and then whatever comes out, comes out. That's a part of it, because sometimes that's how you find your motifs. Sometimes you move through a number of different possibilities, and then you say, okay, this is the one that resonates the most. And from there, you have your skills that allow you to tease it out and to expand it. My colleague O'Neill Price speaks about exhaust the possibilities when he teaches his composition class. Exhaust the possibilities of one motif or of two motifs. You'd be surprised how much you get out of them. You don't need to have 300 motifs. So the from within is now, it's not only for expression. It's not only improvisational. That's where it starts. That's where it grows from. But as you're forming it into choreography, it becomes, I wouldn't say formalized, but distilled. There are many different kinds of branches that get taking the person back to the entire tree. Not to say that improvisation is not choreography, because I know it is. Structured improvisation, improvisation within a certain framework. Even if it's not within a framework, it's still choreography. It's just a different kind of choreography. But yeah, it's when there, it's interesting. There's a way in which when you find the right motif, you're workshopping, if you're in a studio or I'm in the bathroom or I'm around the back with the dog and something comes and I'm starting to move and when it hits and you kind of try to refine it and you find the actual thing, there's a buzz, there's an excitement, there's a, yeah, maybe that's what it feels like when I am creating from within, as against working with maybe somebody else's, what they need me to do. Okay, so I need you to choreograph to this song, or I need you to choreograph to this concept. And in that way, when somebody asks you to choreograph, let's just say the story of a rebellion, for example, people may think it's exciting, but it's not necessarily as exciting. So what I have to do is figure out how to get within it, to create the motifs that nobody else would probably think about, the things that
that's in you.
Right.
And so that's about finding something in you.
Yes, you have to alchemize it.
Concept.
Yeah, to bring it back, abstract it, to kind of bring it back forward. Because you don't want to lift it up out of the history books page and drop it down. You have the people on the horses over there, you have the people with machete over there. No, you don't want that. It's about the underlying emotions. It's about the underlying principles. It's about the relationships. It's about the tensions. It's about not having the machete, but allowing the body to become that machete in speed, in sharpness, in just the physicality, in form, having a multi-bladed machete of your entire body. Like, that's where you can take it, but you have to carry it inside first and then allow it through play, through motif making and so on, to come forth in that more abstract way that has a greater longevity, because people will be trying to figure out what those images mean and they may stay with them, and then a year down the line they may come to you and say, I kept seeing that and it came to me a year later that it was a horse. You don't have to get it right away, but yeah, that's the beauty. That's the alchemy of the choreographic process, or of a choreographic process. Yeah.
Do you document your process? I know you spoke about the authentic movement and visualizing, and you're working with film. Do you document it? How do you go about documentation?
I am a fan of film.
Yes.
It could be the grainiest video. I don't care. I'm a fan of that. I'm a fan of big old scrapbook that you normally use for primary school or secondary school. And because the pages are blank and you can open and you get a larger place. And I write down ideas, particularly as I have different scrapbooks for different kinds of work, because I'm interested in film, I do choreography, I do workshopping, I do other things. And so each one has a different book. And I just write all the things, do all the mappings of things, just write down the music ideas. I'm in love with sound editing, so I love to edit my own music, and everything that is related to it, costume ideas, goes into the one book. So it's a repository. So when I go, whoever I leave it with, whatever archive there will be of me, will have these books that speak to the work. The more formal thing would be now for me to put it digitally, to even create, because I remember, I think Ailey has done it for Revelations before, where they created a course pack for grades K to 12, I think, or something, in the United States, so that if people want to use it as a teaching resource, here is how you teach about the dance piece Revelations. And I would like to do that with my work as well. I mean, maybe people might want it, they may not want it, but at the very least, it is there to say it. I mean, I haven't gotten to the point where there is dance notation. I don't know dance notation. I think I only know one person out here, Marlon Sims, the AD of NDTC. He is trained in lab notation, but there'll be so many different works for him to notate. He wouldn't have time to breathe. But right? But that's another way of documentation that ensures that it can be carried through if video fails or if nobody understands my own scribblings. It is a standard way. And there are different kinds of notations besides Laban as well. I'd love to get into that first, but to be honest with you, the physical archiving is sometimes difficult in this country. We focus on the doing of the thing and not necessarily of the pulling together of the archival information. So now I'm pulling together my archive, my videos, my notes, trying to get things together better. And then the next thing is to try to get copies of the videos of the works from some of the companies that I did them with, because companies like to hold on to works, even if they're
Yeah.
never going to do them again. And sometimes some weren't even filmed, you know? I've been in this game for at least 20 years, making work for more than 20 years. And so I've seen us go from camcorders to the
Yes.
mini discs and even before that, we had the big VHSs. So I have work on each of those kinds of formats. So we're moving from analog to digital. And some of the things that I have done early out in career are analog, you know, but right now I need a digital kind of archives.
Do you consider choreography a form of inquiry?
Of course. Definitely. There are questions you can ask in movement that I don't even think language can form around necessarily. Not to mention when you start to think about choreography that is within the realm of our traditional forms, you know, there are things that there's no English for that can only be shown through the bodies, the patterns, the shapes, the relationships.
Yeah.
It's a form of inquiry into self, of course. There is that. It's a form of inquiry into the things that underpin what we see. Because what we see every day may look to us like news headlines or may look to us like press conferences. Those things have an underpinning movement of bodies. Those things have an underpinning, how did that decision get there? That in itself is movement. Who spoke to who? Or how did that person think? That in itself is movement. And if you can get to that, extrapolate that and push that on stage, it's such an exciting inquiry, a way of thinking. So you're not looking at the system. Okay, you're seeing the wind blow. You're not looking at the tree. The focus is not the tree. The focus is, how is that wind blowing? Where is it coming from? Where is it moving to? That's the choreography. That's the kind of inquiry. It looks beyond to see the traces, especially because it's so ephemeral. You know, you close your eye, you miss one very important part of the thing, right? But because of that, it has to try to. That's why the motifs are so important as well. You have to try to repeat particular things so people remember what your inquiry is about, and then it's really tracing the pattern of energy. That's what it is. Tracing the pattern of energy of something, making that energy manifest. That's what it is. It's making the energy visible, the energy of a thing visible, which I think could lead to more inquiry, or could be a part of inquiry, or could be a result of inquiry.
I need to take a whole minute for making the energy of a thing visible.
It just came to me because we say it about music a lot. So we say, because people are very used to dancers dancing to music. And so the dancer is the music made visible. It's a quote I've heard a lot of times. And it's what I say as well to students. When you are moving, you and the music are one. You and the silence are one. That's what you're trying for, unless the choreography is meant to be dissonant, which then you're still one. You're just one that's moving in different, disparate ways. Thinking about it now in terms of as a mode of inquiry, where we're not even focusing necessarily on music, we may be focusing on a particular idea, a particular concept, a particular world event. The question is tracing the energy of how this world event has happened, how it came about, the dynamics of the relationships in this world event, the implications. Like, that's what it does. And I think that is what the beauty is and the power is of choreography when done well. So it's not just about entertainment. I keep telling people I could do logistics work for a business, a bank. I could do it in the sense that because I'm a choreographer and I know how energy moves and how bodies move best and how to lay something out so that people get a particular kind of experience, I could help people understand where to place their lines, where to have people do this part of the process. Like, it irks me every time I go somewhere. So, you know, the hospital stress me out. It irks me every time. And it doesn't make sense for where they've placed particular things to happen. They may think it makes sense for them, but for the end user, for the experiencer, for the audience, for the participant, it doesn't make sense. And sometimes that sense can cost a life. So, and it's choreographic skills. It's what I've learned through choreographic inquiry and choreographic knowledge about bodies in space that has brought me there, to be able to see patterns and see where it is best to move particular energy for the purpose that you say you want to achieve. It's not
So
a simple
I had
thing.
this question jotted down about if there are things that the body knows that scholarship can't articulate. I feel like that was the answer right there. It's It's so funny. You know this thing, and then we have to go look for the words. Especially when I think about the times that we're living in right now, right?
Yeah.
Globally, in the region, it is a hell of a time we're living through. And I think about the way that energy is flowing and moving. And what a choreographer could see and record in a way that history books will miss, even if they have all the stats.
And I mean, the systems are intended to work together. I think that's why dance history is so powerful. Dance history does that. It looks at the way people were moving during particular historical epochs, significant things historically. Usually also meant people were moving their bodies in a particular kind of way. Were they moving for worship? Were they moving for resistance? Were they moving for kinship in community? How much of that has changed over time as life has modernized according to how the West has sort of taken everything over? How much of that still remains? One of the most beautiful things to see, for example, is in a dance hall body. And I mean a dance hall body that is coming from the space where dance hall was created. And sometimes the things that come out of that body are so resonant because they are literally steps taken from, movements taken from, essences taken from traditional movement that some of those creators don't even know is encoded within them. So there's always this dialogue between past and present and future in a body. It's always this multidimensional conversation, and especially when you start to do traditional forms. I would even say, okay, let us say, we could say in studio dance and we're learning certain kinds of modern techniques. They're still being filtered through this particular body. Past information is coming through in this present moment and leaving something for the future moment. That's really what we are doing. So there's also that ritual and that kind of, technology about it, that liberation technology about it. But we are it's a fascinating thing. We have this ability to even shift what is happening through the way we use our bodies, so that for me, like the carnival moment is so perfect because, I mean, Trinidad Carnival in particular, particularly because of what's happening within Trinidad and Tobago right now, politically. And yet you have this moment where the bodies, even though they may not know it, are able to express very, very freely with a certain loose organization because they're in bands and so on. There's certain particular colors and there's certain things. But unfortunately, after the moment, it moves into Lent, it moves into something else. But that kind of liberation through body still needs to continue, because sometimes that is where the fight has to happen. Because if you try to do it politically, you get slammed. If you try to do it through your job, you'll get fired. But there are the moments where you're able to take the streets and you're able to use your body towards a particular kind of energy, which is why it's important for all mass to continue to be supported, which is why it's important for the riots to be reenacted every single time. It's important for your soca monarch. Those particular things are really, really important to continue alongside the beads and the feathers, because there's a certain ritual work that needs to continue being done, especially with the political moment that you're in right now.
Interesting that you're saying that, because I know a lot of people who have decided not to go to the streets this year. And it's not true for everyone, but I know a good bit of people that because the tension that exists right now, their body doesn't want to do it.
Doesn't want to do it. I know. And the truth is you can't force it either. You can't force it either, but it's man, our ancestors really understood, because it was the bodies that were in ritual that were strong enough to do the resistances. It was the bodies that were in ritual, although things were banned and it was dangerous. Meeting in movement, meeting in sound, meeting in secret, that allowed the rebellions to not just happen, but to be consistent. We never went down quietly. We were always pushing. We were always pushing. It's a body thing. It's a body underlying thing. But I do understand as well, because our circumstances are different, wherein we may choose, man, I don't really feel like doing it, so I'm not going to do it. They may not have felt like doing it, but they had to do it because that was the only way they'd have been able to drum up the strength and to call on who they needed to call on to be able to change the circumstances.
And to survive.
And to survive. I think because we have, in this modern moment, an understanding of what survival means and thriving means and comfort means. We've never had to fight for our lives as a mass of people. We don't see the oppression. And so we don't understand the importance of celebrating our ability to be free. But at the same time, you have to honor what your body wants to be able to do. You can't force your body to go on, because if you try to do that, then it may very well backfire. You need bodies that are willing and open.
But even that is data as well.
Yes, that's true. Exactly.
Yes, that's something. Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about diasporic bodies. So often I see a shared vocabulary of movement that happens wherever you go in the Caribbean, and then on the continent you see it. So you see it that way. So that idea, you said it a little while ago, it was beautifully said, something about the past, the present, and the future, just
Yes,
kind of in this
dialoguing.
dialogue. And we've talked about working with ritual. Is there a way that you need to tend to yourself when after working with ancestral or affective material? What's that process for you? And do you think that you have a diasporic body? Are you aware of having a diasporic body?
I am aware of it very much so. And I give thanks to the School of Dance as well for bringing that even more to the fore. I give thanks to the pioneers of dance in Jamaica, Rex Netleford, Ashila Barnett, Barbara Rekwa, the living pioneers like Lantoinette Steins, Dr. Steins, who have reminded us at every point where they could that our bodies are diasporic, that we are that through line to the continent of Africa. But also we are a through line to the continent of Asia, to
Asia.
India, to China. Like we have, our bodies hold all of that cultural information. And they were not shy about allowing that to be on stage, allowing that to be, as Dr. Steins has done, within the technique that is taught. So I've never not known that I was a diasporic body. For as early as I could remember, Monica Lawrence, Dr. Lawrence, taught me as a teeny child. That was always what we were doing. Patsy Ricketts was in class with us as well, teaching us as well about how diasporic we were, the kind of music we were dancing to, bigger than our years, Jimmy Cliff and Bob Marley and that kind of thing that reminded you of how diasporic you were. You're connected to a larger mapping. The things that we share, once again, we're speaking about the body as archive, living archive, DNA archive. The things that we share, even though our colonizer languages might be different, absolutely extraordinary. And I mean, people who have studied dance, and analyzed dance will tell you, okay, so there are particular things that are retentions from our African heritage, for example. You've got the use of the pelvis, the groundedness of the movement, the bend of the knees, the polyrhythmic nature, and so on. Yeah, you can tick off those things. But many of us do it without even knowing that's what we're doing, which sometimes I think is a problem because we have it in this moment through a fragmented lens. We kind of pick up on certain things. It leads a little bit through dance hall, it leads a little bit through soca, and we're not understanding the actual technology and power and purpose of the things in the first place. The piece I'm working on right now for the School of Dance is called Circumvolution, and it is a continuation of something I'd started before when I was exploring a wind as an interior moment that is a spiral that is actually reflective of how energy is generated. Energy churns before it spirals outward. Spiraling in like common parlance now, particularly Western parlance, is I'm spiraling, meaning I'm out of control or my emotions are. We have to be careful because spirals have always been understood by our particularly West African ancestry. And I think even in other spaces, I think in Tai Chi, for example, the use of a spiral is very important in terms of what it can generate. It aligns you to nature in a way that straight lines can never do. And we have that encoded in us all the time. And I think we're wasting it because we've seen it through the sexualized lens only. And we're not understanding the power of connecting and connecting our forefathers and mothers and foreparents knew this. That's why it was so important in something like Dinky Mini, which is one of our traditional forms that is used particularly at wakes. It was important for that corkscrew to happen because someone has died. We have to generate new life. The Dinky Mini songs are some of the slackest songs you have ever heard. They're so rude because they're also understanding that circle of life. And that was handed to us by our ancestry. Even amidst the colonial oppressions and the violences, those things remained. And now we're in a moment where we've commodified the pelvis so much because we're seeing it through the Western gaze. We've commodified it on one hand and repressed it on the other hand, also through the other part of the Western gaze that's more religious, Christian religious, fundamentalist religious, that we have been separated from the thing it is supposed to allow us to be able to do, which is generate energy for change, generate energy for birth, generate energy for creativity, generate energy that is dangerous, and energy that can cut through what is masking us from being able to not be oppressed anymore. So the things that we have received and we have echoes of, and we kind of pulling the echoes in so that we can try to do a thing in this, in these 2020s. I don't think we're still really understanding the power of the pelvis. And that is something that we share across the Caribbean and that we share with the African continent. Well, as I say so loosely, because it's really more like West African, because of course, in the different parts of Africa, there are different kinds of dances that have a distinct framework and use of space. So what you'll see in East Africa is different from what you will see in North Africa. What we have received here is largely West African. And so the beauty of, and I mean, I've been able to luckily connect with colleagues from around the Caribbean, whether in English speaking, and French speaking, because I've been to Haiti before, and to be able to talk about and see how we move together so easily. It's amazing. What words do you need? And here it comes again in terms of the language. We have the shared language because we have that shared understanding of how a body is able to play in space and time, which is distinctly different from how a European has inherited the way a body is able to play in space and time. And I want us to divest from that as being central, center ourselves, and maybe have that as an option, as against having that being, that cannot be, or what did they call it in Voodoo again? Putumiton? That cannot be our center pole. It can't be our center pole. That cannot be what we have our practice moving around. Our practice needs to move around us. Lloyd Best said it. We are our own first world.
If Caribbean choreography was a philosophy, what would its core tenets be?
I don't know if there is a Caribbean choreography. That's a thing, because we are all so global sometimes. We're so influenced. We're so eclectic.
Yeah.
Right. And even by deeper things on the inside. I think of those who are privy to the things that are secret to everybody else, those who come from maroon communities or come from other communities that give them a different kind of movement information. That I don't think there's a one. I think there is a multiplicity of Caribbean choreographies.
Is there a red thread that connects them?
I think the thread that connects is, based upon what I've experienced, is an affirmation. From all that I've seen, it's an affirmation of self, of living, of what happens in living in a Caribbean space, sometimes of the occupational things, of the flora and fauna, of the relationships that we have, of our urban moments. I see celebration and affirmation. I see commentary as well. A number of colleagues of mine from around the Caribbean use their work to also focus on commenting on what is going on. So it has moved beyond for the gaze of a tourist. Make we laugh and make we this and make we that and make them feel good. That's not it. Let us affirm ourselves. Let us, and I think it's along the tradition of Professor Nettleford in terms of that kind of cultural certitude and that sort of importance of cultural affirmation to shore up your identity, to be able to break whatever chains are there. They did a lot of work during that time in the various countries as well of the Caribbean in that regard. But what I do see is, I can't say for now, because there has been a kind of an overtaking of a North American way of moving that is kind of fierce and, slay, and that kind of way of being, legs up there, and is this kind of virtuosity without the underpinning affirmation of Caribbean-ness.
Yeah.
Maybe the new kind of Caribbean-ness, but I'm seeing more of that. I don't say I love it, because virtuosity, there's no problem with virtuosity, but what are you saying with it? Are you trying to imitate somebody else's cultural imperative, or are you thinking about your own cultural imperatives?
What's the commentary?
What's the commentary? And what's the thing you're affirming? I can't say that there's a particular philosophy, but there are common things, I think, being expressed in some of the best choreography that I've seen happening from the Caribbean. And I'm not unbiased, by the way. There are things I like and things I don't.
I hear it. That sense of affirmation and commentary. Yeah. And coming from the things that we had to do to survive and the things that the body has remembered.
Yeah. The things that the body has remembered. Yeah.
I kind of find that when I look at dance going through the islands, there's a thing that we evolve. It's different, but there's a thing. Yeah. Like even looking at Puerto Rico and some of those. There's a thing. It's very familiar. I was like, oh, I know that.
There is an audacity. There is a certitude. There's a sense of belonging. There's a sense of joyousness, like a connecting with life itself, the vibration of life.
Yeah.
And I think the best Caribbean choreography pulls on those kinds of things, sense of, because the moment that I want us to get into now is to be able to use that in order to counter some of the newer forms of oppression that are more insidious, so that we're not replicating, we may be expanding our canon, but we're not replicating. We are maybe enfolding some things to be able to reach to other people. But I want us to remember what we have at our home and move from there instead of trying to put on somebody else's home. My colleague of mine, Chris Walker, brilliant at that. He really works in a contemporary way, but it is always informed by the fact that he's a man from St. Anne. He came from St. Anne. He is a son of the St. Anne soil. He's in love with Jamaican traditional culture and uses that and extrapolates from that in order to create what is the contemporary moment in the work. And I think that of our generation, that's what we try to do. That's what we try to do instead of trying to import other things.
Yeah. And your contemporary is therefore rooted in ritual and culture. So it has roots.
It has roots.
Although it's doing something new and it's playing with what's going on now, it has roots.
We try, and I mean, it does resonate because also when, for example, the NDTC travels or La Cadco travels, even a company that is more contemporary and modern and jazz like company CDT travels, I think what people like is that they see Jamaica, they see Caribbean bodies, they see bodies that, because when a Caribbean body dances to jazz music, best believe it's different because we have a different kind of languidity about the way we hear rhythm or we respond to rhythm than somebody who grew up in Chicago, where everything is like this and the wind is cold and the buildings are high, and it does your landscape does something different from how you receive movement and how you portray movement, how you receive sound and how you it comes through your bodies. We have something different to offer, and I think that's what people want to see from us instead of us trying to do what they do.
So I feel like I need to close it up, Tracy. I have like so many other things I want to ask you here. What futures become imaginable when we trust the body as archive?
Archive that is housed in the body has the answers. I really believe it has the answers. And it is in the questioning that the answer comes. It's in the process of going in and seeing, sitting with, bowing to the body as archive, being humble about it, that the answers for the future come. I think we have everything within us. And if I'm doing that work and somebody else is doing that work and somebody else is doing that work on themselves, when we come together much more embodied, we have much more to offer to be able to create a future. Because what I'm finding now, which is unfortunate, is that people are telling us what our future is going to be. One of the things that irks me the most is when people say, well, AI is inevitable, so you just might as well.
No such thing.
Inevitable?
Listen, we survived all sorts of things. What is inevitable?
Right. We weren't supposed to be alive now. We weren't supposed to have ancestors who were alive before us. Like everybody was just cut out and we're just dead. So you can't tell me that somebody else's dream for the world is what's inevitable. And this last dying throes of patriarchy, or this extinction burst where they're trying to mash up everything, it's going to pass. Unfortunately, it will take a number of souls, but it's going to pass. Nobody can dictate what is inevitable for us, particularly when we have such strength within us. These particular bodies within the diaspora, the African diaspora, are so imbued by virtue even just of our skin color, imbued with the technology for the future, the stem cell stuff that is within us. I don't think we understand the importance of this kind of archive. It has all the answers. It has all of the answers. We just need to listen and pray for the ability to not just listen, but to be able to understand and know how to use it, how to connect it, because it's not an individual job. There is a whole set of people who stand to earn a lot from our belief in the inevitability of something. There is, I think her name is Tress Hamilton. Can't remember. Instagram is stressing me out because there's so many great people there, but I can't remember. But she speaks about refusal. She's a Black American academic. Refusal is an option. There's no reason why, because you tell me something is inevitable, that I should just go along with it that way. No, especially when something like AI is not actual intelligence. It's learned information from what we already do as humans. And because you say it's inevitable, like, I'm not saying it's not helpful, but they're trying to pump more money into it for it to actually make money back. It's not going to. That's another story. Why do I have to take that as inevitable?
Yeah.
There must be something I can do to shift and change that. That's your version of the world where you get to earn everything and everybody else is working for you. No, 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 no. We've been through too much as a region to accept somebody else's inevitability, to accept somebody else's bullying, to accept somebody else's mandates, and certainly to accept being somebody else's backyard. We've been through too much. And the answer to that is being able to connect with the archive. Because my archive remembers when I read about the Monroe Doctrine in high school and I was livid. I was 15 and upset. I said, how dare they think that we are their backyard? We are our own selves and we've been colonized and spat out and violated. Go away. But to think that they would hold on to that until such a time as this, we have to go back into the archive and remember those things and not allow those things and hold our leaders to account as well. Because there must be somewhere in their archive as well. It must be somewhere there. It must be somewhere there. Because I do fear for our region if we do not become embodied enough to put ourselves on the line and refuse certain kinds of inevitabilities that is somebody else's dream. Because that dream is literally the colonial project continuing. We can't allow that to happen. We already speak English and we can't participate in it. We shouldn't.
I think that's the perfect place to end.
Tracy.
Inevitability. How dare you?
How dare you? Who you be? Who you think you are?
Who you think you is?
Who you think it is? Look at a man.
Neila, this has been amazing.
Yes.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Saltwater Reasonings with Neila Ebankhs. This conversation invited us to think seriously about movement as art, inquiry, and embodied knowledge. It asked us to consider the body as archive, choreography as a way of tracing energy, and embodiment as political and spiritual practice. From ritual and ancestral memory to grief refusal and Caribbean futures, Neila reminded us that our bodies carry knowledge systems that colonial modernity has attempted to silence without fully erasing. What stayed with me most is the insistence that the archive is already within us. The work is learning how to listen. To learn more about Neila's work, please visit tracyrogers.com/saltwater reasonings. If this conversation resonated with you, share the episode and continue reasoning with us. Until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and remember, the body is our living archive.